Roger Waters, Pink Floyd, and Dark Side of the Moon saved me from my teenage years. I forgot to mention marijuana, but that's another thing. That I have to introduce Roger Waters is an embarrassment. Roger Waters.
Wow. How do you follow all that love? That is a lot of love to come out of three people preceding you when you've got to get up to a podium and say something to a room full of people like this. But I will do my best. David Zirin in the green room before we came out here tonight asked me, he said, what happened? How did you get into this? What was the beginning of the story? And I thought, I've told this story a lot, but I'm going to tell it once more because he hadn't heard it and he said he thought I should. So here we go. I tacked a gig in Tel Aviv at the Haikon Stadium onto the end of a European tour in 2006. And immediately I started getting emails from all kinds of people. But one of the people I got an email from was Omar Barghouti, who 2 years before had been part of the committee that started the BDS movement in Palestine. They tried to prevail upon me to cancel the show that I was going to do there, and I did cancel it. I was persuaded by their arguments, but I came to a compromise and I moved my show to an agricultural community halfway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, called Neve Shalom, or in Arabic, Wahat Asalam, and which is a multi-faith kind of ecumenical community where Jews and Druze and Christians and Muslims all live together with their children, and the children all school together, and they all cooperate with one another. And it is an expression of brotherhood and love. So we did a gig there in the middle of an empty chickpea field. And it was the biggest gig anybody ever had in Israel. There were 60,000 people there. I was doing Dark Side of the Moon tour at the time. And the audience took hours and hours to get in and blah, 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 blah. And they spent the whole night going like they do. You know, I've got nothing against that. I love that personally. But they did. Until we got to the end of the evening, when I stood up in front of all that and said, you are the generation of young Israelis who must make peace with your brothers and sisters in the neighborhood and bring in a new era of et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they went from to, what the fuck's he talking about? In a heartbeat. And it was one of the most chilling sights I've ever seen in my life. I saw it later in various parts of Israel when I went back the next year. Anyway, that is the start of the story. And I went back the next year and traveled all around the West Bank. And it was a chilling experience, even though I was under the protection of the United Nations and a lovely woman called Allegra Pacheo, who worked for UNRWA at the time. I was devastated by my personal witness of the apartheid and oppression and the stealing and dispossession that I witnessed. And so I've been a small part of this movement ever since those times. Okay, moving on. I was going to talk about Paris in 1948 and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but Marc covered all that, so I'm screwed. Except to say, this is something I say at all my shows now. I say all of you in this room, in fact, everyone in the world at some point, comes to a moment in their lives when they have to make a choice. They have to study the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, all 30 articles, and they have to decide for themselves whether they subscribe to the idea. Because as we know, it is a fairly modern idea. It's only a couple of hundred years old. So you have to ask yourself that question, or you do if you want to have any semblance of being a human being. And if you decide that you do subscribe to the definitions in the Declaration, you then have to decide whether you're prepared to stand behind it or not, as these people on this stage all are, and as I suspect most of you are, because it's fundamentally important to the way that you lead your life from that point on. All right, that's enough about the fundamental Declaration of Human Rights. 10 years ago, and this really is a digression, but I don't care, because these three wonderful people on this stage with me have covered everything that I could say about Palestine and freedom for the Palestinian people, and have said it probably more eloquently than I could. However, 10 years ago, in 2008, just before Obama was elected as the President of the United States, I wrote a somewhat rambling poem, and I'm going to read it now. I've since made an album that has the same title, but the poem is quite different. It's called, "Is This the Life We Really Want?" I felt this poem kind of popping out of me as I drove from the airport today through this bit of Massachusetts and looking at all the clapboard farmhouses, and I felt as if I'm in the heart of something that is American here. So anyway, the concept of an average guy is patently absurd. There's too much differential in the herd. Just look at Bush and Cheney, then look at you and me. It's like comparing Shakespeare to reality TV. Is this the life we really want? Being murdered by these clowns? Our children crushed in rubble? Are we deafened by the sound of media mouths all moving in apparent unity, spewing out the mantra of the free? Free to plan the neoland, safe in their bomb-proof lairs, free to send our sons to war, our sons, of course, not theirs, free to burn and pillage, to fill the family vault, free to claim it's dog-eat-dog and really not their fault. Fear drives the mills of modern man. Fear keeps us all in line. Fear of all those foreigners. Fear of all their crimes. Is this the life we really want? It surely must be so, for this is a democracy, and what we all say goes. We all say, kill bin Laden, kill Saddam Hussein, kill anyone collateral who might get in the way, kill all the dogs and shopkeepers, kill all the coppersmiths, kill everyone who chooses to be on the evil list. Kill everyone who doesn't want to be our acolyte. Kill everyone who disagrees that what we say is right. It's going to cost us trillions, already has in fact, but no price is too heavy to keep the faith intact, because we believe in freedom, human rights for everyone. Well, everyone, that is, except the ones we need to bomb. And if some of them are children and seem a bit forlorn, it's not our fault. They should have chosen somewhere different to be born. Anyway, I'm sure they'll all agree it's a success when we've tidied all the insurgents and tidied up the mess. Even though they may be crippled or rotting underground, they'll be happy when democracy's the only game in town. They can help to build our bases. They can wash our fancy cars. They can service all our carnal needs in pickup joints and bars. Against their religion? Their religion's wrong. I'm sure they'll get the hang of it, catch on before too long. Then they can all watch baseball. They can build a Disneyland, eat pizza and McDonald's, drink bourbon, start a band. I know, no alcohol. The towel heads don't drink. The fuck, they'll soon get used to it. We'll have to have a think. I digress, I'm sorry. What was my train of thought? Oh yes, now I remember. Is this what we all ought to be devoting our resources to spread this rotten creed, teaching their dead children avarice and greed? Was it Truman Capote who famously railed, "It's not enough that I succeed, I need others to fail"? Is this the life we really want? to set ourselves at odds with every other species, not to mention other gods? I don't think so. In general, my experience has been that ordinary Americans, when asked to cite their dream, conjure an existence where they can raise their kids without the chafe of blowing other people's kids to bits. Is it my imagination? Is it too much to suggest that their leaders over there and our leaders in the West are driven not by trying to achieve peace in our time, but by something else, by something altogether less sublime? Call me a cynic, but it sometimes seems to me that some of them are more attached to power than to peace. Just supposing for a moment that they're in it for the cash, that they're looking out for number one, building up their stash. What better way to divert the attentions of the poor than an axis of evil and a good old-fashioned war? It's economics 101, as every schoolboy knows. War is good for business and diverts us from our woes. It's so unpatriotic to complain about our lot when our brave boys are out there in the desert getting shot. Imagine if the money that we're spending on the war was used instead to rebuild dikes and help rehouse the poor, to research cures for cancer and fund institutes, to delve into ways of helping people less well off than ourselves, to secure our docks and airports and power stations, to prevent the disaffected in our own and other nations from expressing their attachment to some vengeful deity in self-immolation, immolating you and me. Or is it power that gets them, being able to decide how to divvy up the cake, who should live, who should die? To have at their disposal all those sexy tanks and planes. Got you. No, I got you first, reliving boyhood games. Why don't we just stop them? Why don't we get tough, take to the streets in millions, say, enough is enough? Why? Why? It's obvious, because actually we, that's you and me, that's all of us, because actually we, all the blacks and all the whites, Chicanos, Asians, every type of ethnic group, even folks from Guadeloupe, the old, the young, the toothless hags, the supermodels, actors, fags, football stars, men in bars, washerwomen, tailors, tarts, grannies, grandpas, uncles, aunts, friends, relations, homeless tramps, clerics, truckers, cleaners, ants, maybe not ants, because it's true that ants don't have enough IQ to differentiate between the pain that other people feel and, well, for instance, cutting leaves or crawling across windowsills in search of opal treacle tins. So like the ants, are we just dumb? Is that why we don't feel or see? Or are we all just numbed out on reality TV? So every time, the roadside mine, the guided bomb, the ricochet, the Gatling gun, the tomahawk, the phantom, mirage, RF squawk, the IED, the false hello, the cluster bomb with fries to go. Every time the curtain falls on some forgotten foreign life, rest assured it is because we did nothing to prevent our masters, dedicated as they are, not to protection of the weak, not to democracy, that we did nothing to prevent their headlong dash to maximize the bottom line. So what, if anything, to do? Well, understand that every day, in many small but central ways, we get to choose enslavement to the bottom line, with all that that implies, dog eat dog, God eat God. Did I mention freedom fries? Anyway, we get to choose, or so we're all led to believe. Well, now, in 2008, election year, who knows? It may well be too late, but just suppose if we all vote that we can start to bridge the gap between what we all have become and what we all just might have been, the gap between the blind and blinkered great unwashed, the laughingstock, the butt of universal scorn and enmity and wrath and grace and pride and leadership and light and beacons shining in the West, admired by both the old world and the third. Safe haven for the lauded claims in constitutions written fair on parchment years ago, when equality, fraternity, and liberty were rocks core-bedded in an earth emerging from a darker age. I do believe that we can spread our wings, take flight, renounce the darkness of the marketplace, reach out across the iodog's abyss, embrace our longing to be kinder, and have more fun, and garnish less the moneylenders' nests, and touch and sing and breathe in relish of our new unfettered selves. Embrace the law in that we all agree that standard issue kicking in our door, tapping phones, rendition, torture, waterboarding and the rest, the random shooting down on London's underground of someone's nephew from Brazil, however scared the powers that be, are alien to our beliefs, and so should be confined to memories of Hitler's Reich and, of course, to Uncle Joe's Gulag archipelagos. So are we babies that we need to be protected, that left unfettered thrashing we might hurt ourselves, that they, the Cheneys, Putins, Bushes, Blairs, and all their spawn and all their heirs, in all their ruinous, bankrupt, fearful crap, that they somehow should have the power to keep us at each other's throats, impotent, straight-jacketed, squabbling over dimes and groats, like infants in our swaddling clothes. Fuck them. Enough. They've had their time. A new day dawns, and we will not be swaddled in their grime.